Hello again. Exam 3, Essay 2. Let's get into it, go over what we're going to cover in the question. Describe the events taking place in the left ventricle and aorta during the cardiac cycle. Include the various stages, blood volume changes, pressure changes, opening and closing of valves, and heart sounds. Finally, be sure you can explain the pressure volume curves for a single cardiac cycle. Okay, perfect. So looking at this here, come back up to my script. There it is. All right, so there are going to be several, two different phases that we need to be aware of. There's going to be the diastole, labeled dia down here, and the systole. And different events will happen between the systole and the diastole in the ventricles and the aortas. So we're going to start with our diastole. I know it's in the middle and it seems kind of out of place, but that's the way that it made sense to me. So in our diastole, there's going to be a ventricular filling, and this is when blood will be pouring into the ventricle, and this is when the left ventricle is going to be relaxed. Blood will flow from the left atrium into the left ventricle through the open mitral valve once that opens, and then as the blood fills this ventricle, the volume will increase, but the pressure will remain relatively low until we contract. So let's add a little drawing to that. So we're going to see our volume right there, our blood volume. This is going to be in our, here. I'm kind of using the image from the book as a guide. It's the best one that I could find. There's really nothing like it out there. I think JS is Jason Shaw. I might be wrong. Anyways, if it's his image, I hope he's okay with me using it. Anyways, ventricle volume in the diastole, we will see an increase until it plateaus right about there. And during this is actually when we're going to see the electrical waves from the heart, from the ECG of the heart begin to form. And here we're going to see our P wave right in there. And then here near the end is where we're going to see our QRS complex. QRS. Like that. I'm going to draw the line to connect them. Our bump for the P, a small dip for the Q, spike up to the R, drop lower for the S. And that is going to be our ventricular filling from left atrium to left ventricle. I skipped over the filling of the left aorta because it is fed by the vena cava, and the pressure is created by the heart throughout the body. So there's just dead pressure pushing the blood into the left atrium. I'm not skipping it. It's just into the ventricle is when we see the most action, so to say. All right, so our next portion is going to be the beginning of the systole right down here. And this is when the ventricles are going to start to contract, but the aortic valve is still closed. And so the pressure of the ventricle is going to rise pretty sharply, and the volume is going to remain constant because the valves are still closed. The volume is going to remain constant, pressure is going to build. All right. So let's draw that in here. We're going to see volume stay just like that. And then we're also going to start drawing some ventricular pressure. Ventricular pressure is going to be right above there. It's going to be pretty normal through our filling. It's going to get a small increase as it is filled with blood. That's what that bump is there. And then at the beginning of the systole, we're going to see pressure jump and spike. Just like that. You're going to see that pressure jump And it's going to start coming down as we move into our next phase as the valves open. Okay. So after this is going to be called our ventricular ejection. And then once the pressure of the left ventricle exceeds the pressure in the aorta, which takes some pressure to get there, the aortic valve is going to open. And this is when blood is ejected into the aorta. Yeah, aorta. Okay, cool. Decreasing the ventricular volume while the pressure remains high. So that blood is just going to spray into the aorta. So let's go ahead and draw that. We will see ventricular pressure dip here. And then our aortic pressure is my wife with an audiobook, if you were wondering. All right. Our aortic pressure is going to be decreasing here, and then it's going to jump following the increase of the pressure in the ventricle. It is going to be after. I'm trying to draw it here more intense, like the following is much greater. Like here, the pressure will build in the ventricle, and then it's going to increase in the aorta following that. Okay, so that's our aortic pressure as we see that happen. And at this time is when we are also going to see our T wave in our electrocardiogram. So we will include that here. That's going to be our T wave right down there. Okay, cool. Back to my script. Back to my script. Raw, unfiltered videos. We love it. Okay, so after this is where we're going to see the relaxation of our ventricles after the ejection phase. And our aortic valves are going to close, and that's going to stop backflow of any blood that could get in there. And the ventricles, their pressure is going to drop off. All right, so that's what we see right here with this line. It drops pretty drastically, but the volume is going to remain constant because the mitral valve is also closed. So once that blood is out of there, volume is going to stay constant because our mitral valve has yet to open. All right, let's get into our heart sounds as we go through this. Blood from ventricle to ventricle and then into aorta. Our valves opening and closing is going to be what makes the sounds the lub-dub of the heart. So our first sound is going to happen right at our contraction phase when our mitral and our tricuspid valves close. And our second one is going to happen when we get our relaxation phase and when our aortic and pulmonary valves close. So let's go ahead and draw that as well. So we're going to have, again, just from the image of the book, it's really helpful. It's the best one out there that I found. And I was looking for a while. So we're going to have our first sound here. And this is going to be as our, no, I'm sorry. I apologize. Our first sound is going to be here. And that mitral valve is going to close. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to have another sound as the pulmonary and the aortic valve close. So lub, dub. And it's going to continue throughout the system. And in here, this third little one right here, this is a smaller sound. I really couldn't figure out what that means. If I lose points on that, so be it. I couldn't really figure out what that third sound is supposed to be. So include it just for the sake of including everything that JS F13 has included in this image that I am borrowing from. All right, let's go over and, I didn't finish on the ventricle. So our ventricular pressure is going to drop here as blood moves into the aortas. You can see that drop in pressure, and it's just going to happen again right here. So that pressure is going to drop. It's going to start building up again, plateau, open the valves, drop off again inside the ventricles. Okay. Whoa. Attitude, am I right? It's just windy today. If you know Saturday, and you're watching this later, Saturday was pretty freaking windy. All right. I think I covered everything. I'm going to go back to our question and make sure I did. Various stages, blood volume changes, pressure changes, opening, closing of valves, and the heart sounds. Make sure you can explain the pressure volume curves for a single cardiac cycle, which we did here. That is the wrap up of question number 2 for essay 3. Back here with 3, 4, and 5.